Hello, my name is Barb Brinkle, and I'm a teacher at Marlborough School in Burnaby. For many years, I have incorporated a law unit into my grade 6-7 social studies program, and at the end of the unit, we celebrate by presenting a mock trial. You will notice when we do the trial that we incorporate fairy tale characters. And that is because at the elementary level, it's a little bit more interesting and fun for the students to experiment and develop their acting skills with the different characters. And it also provides the experience of what they would have in a Supreme Court trial in the criminal case. We're going to do a little bit of a walkabout now with one of my students, Evelyn, and explain to you what each person in the courtroom does. So, Evelyn, where would you like to start?
Let's start at the judge.
All right, and we'll start at the top. Good idea. So what does the judge do?
Decides whether the accused is guilty or not guilty if there is no jury. Explains the jury their job and does the sentencing.
Okay, and where are we going to move to next?
The deputy sheriff.
All right, and we have two sheriffs, don't we?
Yes.
And can you explain the jobs of the deputy sheriffs?
Deputy sheriff transports the accused from the jail to the courtroom and protects the judge and the jury.
Right. And speaking of the jury, we have one seated today. Can you tell us a little bit about a Supreme Court criminal jury?
The jury decides whether the accused is guilty or not guilty. In a criminal case, there are 12 jury members. In a civil, there are 8.
Right. And where would we like to go next?
The court clerk.
The court clerk. And he's a very busy person, isn't he?
Yes.
And tell us what his jobs are?
He assists the judge and takes care of the evidence.
Right. And we have a lot of lawyers sitting in front of us. Where shall we go first?
The defense counsel.
Defense counsel. And what is their job?
They defend the accused and try to prove that Crown counsel hasn't proved his or her case.
Right. And I understand that we have some very expensive defense counsel lawyers here, the best that Marlborough has to offer. So we wish them luck in their case. And opposing them are?
Crown counsel.
And can you explain what the job of the Crown counsel is?
They present the evidence gathered by the government against the accused.
Right, and we need to we have an accused here, don't we? So
yes.
Why is she sitting here? Is she here because she has broken a law?
Yes.
We think, right? But she is still innocent?
Until proven guilty.
Beyond?
A reasonable doubt.
Excellent. And we're standing right here by the witness stand, and we're going to see some witnesses here today who are character witnesses and eyewitnesses. But we have other witnesses also, don't we?
Yes.
In other kinds of trials. So what other kind of witness could we expect to see here?
A professional witness.
And could you elaborate on that?
A doctor, a police officer, or a nurse.
Or a CSI, right?
Yeah.
And they are called expert witnesses,
yeah.
right? Now, our accused here is on trial, and she is Madam Evilyn.
Yes.
And so we are going to begin our trial, and we'll turn over to the court clerk.
Order in court. At the Supreme Court of British Columbia at Vancouver, this 26th of May, 2011, calling Her Majesty the Queen against Madam Evilyn.
You may be seated. Are all parties present?
Yes, my lord. I am Audi Lee, and these are my friends, Kevin Lee and Zoe Lee. We are acting on behalf of the Crown in this matter.
My lord, I am Halen Zhang, and these are my friends Alex Choi, Edward Chen, Saif Rahman, and Lulu Liao. We are acting on behalf of the accused, Madam Evilyn, Cinderella's stepmother. That's spelled E-V-I-L-Y-N.
Will the accused please stand? Madam Evilyn, you are charged with 2 offenses. The first, that between the dates of September 2005 and 2008, you did unlawfully exploit Cinderella. Madam Evilyn, how do you plead?
Not guilty.
Madam Evilyn, you are also charged with the second offense, that on the date of September 18, 2009, you did forcibly confine Cinderella. Madam Evilyn, how do you plead?
Not guilty.
She pleads not guilty on both counts, my lord.
All right, then. Are counsel ready to proceed with the trial?
Yes, my lord.
Yes, my lord.
All right, then. I will just take a moment to address the jury. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Before beginning this trial, I'm going to make a few comments about your role here today. As the judge in this matter, it is my role to interpret and judge the law. As the jury in this matter, it is your role to assess the evidence presented here by the witnesses today. There are two other principles that are important as your role as jurors. There are presumption of innocence and proof beyond reasonable doubt. Madame Evilyn is presumed to be innocent until the Crown has satisfied you beyond a reasonable doubt that she is guilty. The responsibility is on the Crown to prove each element of Madame Evilyn's crime that she has been charged with. Because of the presumption of innocence, Madame Evilyn is not required to prove that she is not guilty or to explain the evidence presented by the Crown. Madame Evilyn is charged with 2 crimes. In order for you to find her guilty of unlawful exploitation under Section 279.04 of the Criminal Code, the Crown must prove the following elements beyond a reasonable doubt. That the accused did between 2005 and 2008 led the complainant, Cinderella, to provide labor against her will. That in providing labor or services was done against Cinderella's will, that in causing Cinderella to do these labor or services, the safety of her or persons known to her would be threatened if she failed to provide these labor or such services. In order for you to find Madame Evilyn guilty of forcible confinement under Section 279, Part 2 of the Criminal Code, the Crown must prove the following elements beyond a reasonable doubt. That on September 18th, 2008, Madame Evilyn, with intent, confined, imprisoned, forcibly seized Cinderella, and she did so without lawful authority. These charges are not related. You may find the accused guilty of both of these offenses, neither of these offenses, or just one of these offenses. I now call the Crown to proceed with their case.
Members of the jury, myself and my colleagues seated with me represent the Crown in the matter before you. I will keep our opening very brief. We intend to call several witnesses to testify before you to prove that the accused, Madame Evilyn, did between the dates of 2005 and 2008 unlawfully exploited Cinderella, and did on the date of September 19, 2008 forcibly confine Cinderella. At the end of this trial, we will ask you to return a verdict that the accused, Madame Evilyn, is guilty of both unlawful exploitation and forcible confinement. Thank you.
Is the Crown ready to call its first witness?
Yes, my lord. The Crown calls Cinderella to the stand.
Would you like to affirm or swear on an oath?
Swear.
Take the Bible in your right hand. Do you swear that the evidence you shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your full name for the record.
Cinderella?
And your last name?
No, just Cinderella, like Beyonce or Rihanna.
Do you have a job, Cinderella?
I'm a princess. Princesses don't work, but I do dedicate a lot of time to volunteering.
Where do you volunteer?
At the animal shelter, I give the animals their voice lessons.
Where do you currently live?
At Burnaby Palace.
Have you always lived there?
No, I grew up in a house with my stepmother and 2 stepsisters in Burnaby.
Do you see your stepmother in the courtroom today?
Yes, she is over there in the accused box.
Can you describe for the court what it was like when your stepmother and stepsisters moved in with you?
Well, I was excited at first because I was an only child and I wanted big sisters. You know, they have cool clothes and cool friends and I wouldn't be so lonely anymore. But after a while, I guess I wasn't cool enough for them. They did their own thing. My stepmother wasn't very nice to me and I didn't like her very much. She gave us all chores, but I had more than anyone else, and pretty soon I was doing all of my stepsister's work too. I did all the cleaning and didn't get to take piano or singing lessons like the other girls. I was alone a lot and didn't get to go out much.
You mentioned that you did a lot of chores. Do you recognize the document, Cinderella?
Yes.
My lord, I would like to enter this as Exhibit 1.
Any objections?
No, my lord.
Clerk, please mark this as Exhibit number 1.
Can you tell me about the document?
Well, this is the chores list. I didn't have to do all of these in the beginning. We all had to. That was how Dad liked it. But after he died, I had to do it all. I cleaned the floors, the blinds, the windows. I cleaned out the stables where I spent most of my time with the animals. I also needed to do anything else that needed to be done around the house, like clean and organize. I cooked a lot of the meals and brought everyone else their meals, tea, and cookies.
What did your stepsisters have to do for their chores?
Well, they cleaned their rooms and did their laundry. That didn't last long at the beginning. Once Dad died, I had to do it all.
What would happen if you didn't do your chores?
Well, at first my stepmother took away my piano lessons, then any other fun activities. Then I got so busy with chores that I just didn't have time for anything other than work. And sometimes I would be shut up in my room.
What do you mean by shut up?
Well, I wasn't allowed to leave, and I couldn't get the door open. It was locked, and I wouldn't have been able to climb out the window. It was too high. Oh, and I wouldn't be able to eat dinner with the family even though I was the one who usually made it.
How often did you get to leave the house?
Never.
Never?
Well, not often. I wasn't allowed out in the evenings anyways. All my friends have seen the Twilight series but me.
Well, what about seeing your friends?
Well, my only friends were the mice and the birds.
What else can you tell me about your interactions with your stepmother?
Well, she's never really liked me. I've never been a daughter to her because every single time I wouldn't do something that she'd want me to, I'd get shut up in my room. She was evil. A witch. She scared me.
Objection. The witness is not qualified to call the accused a witch. The witness is offering opinion evidence.
Allow the objection. Cinderella, please limit how you phrase your questions to things yourself witnessed or heard, and do not provide your opinions.
Were there any other instances when she made threats?
Objection. The Crown is misstating the evidence. The witness never used the word threat.
But she did threaten me, and she said she'd feed my mice and bird friends to Lucifer, that awful cat of hers.
All right, counsel, I'll allow it this once, but please watch how you phrase your questions. Pfft, lawyers.
Is there anything you else wanted to add about living in the house?
Well, my stepmother encouraged my stepsisters to be mean to me, to leave their rooms messy so I'd have to clean up after them. They teased me, bullied me endlessly, and she never did anything to stop them.
Did anyone ever strike you or harm you physically?
Well, my stepsisters would often pull my hair and rip my clothes, and my stepmother would often swing a broomstick at me.
I'd like to direct your attention now to the date of the homecoming ball, September 18, 2008. Do you recall that date?
Well, yes, of course.
What is remarkable about that day?
Well, that was the day of homecoming, the day I met my husband.
How did you find out about the homecoming?
Well, a man came to the door with a gold envelope. I brought it straight to my stepmother because I knew she'd get very angry at me if I opened any mail. She opened it, and it was an invitation to homecoming.
Do you recognize this letter?
Yes.
My lord, I would like this exhibit tendered as exhibit number 2.
Any objections? Clerk, please mark this as exhibit number 2.
What does the invitation say?
All eligible bachelorettes between the ages of 16 and 21 are required to attend the prince's homecoming inaugural ball. And that includes me. And I got very excited because this would be the first time I'd be allowed out of the house in 4 years. My stepmother said my stepsisters needed new dresses, so they decided to go to Metrotown to shop for clothes.
Did you go too?
No. My stepmother gave me like twice as many chores to do as usual, and when they got back, I had to do alterations for my stepsisters' dresses. I still didn't have a dress to wear, so I used my mother's old dress and the scraps for my stepsisters' dresses to make myself a dress.
And did you get your dress done in time?
Yes. The limo came at 7 p.m. I came downstairs and they were all just staring at me. And then Drizella screamed and freaked out, and then both of them just started ripping my dress apart.
How did your stepmother respond to this?
She did absolutely nothing to stop them. She just walked away and they followed her, locking the door from the outside, locking me inside.
So what happened next?
Well, I was crying and my mice were there to comfort me, and then out of nowhere my fairy godmother appeared.
What did she do?
Well, she said she could make sure I get to the ball. She had the most gorgeous dress for me and the cutest little glass slippers. And then an SUV limo pulled up to the doors of the driveway, and the doors to the house just burst open, and I got to go to the ball.
What happened at the ball?
Well, there were loads of people there, all meeting the prince. I came down the stairs and the crowd just parted, and he saw me.
What happened next?
Well, he started singing, baby, 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 ooh, oh, baby, 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 ooh. I couldn't believe it was him. That voice, it's magical. We danced the night away.
When did you leave?
Well, all of a sudden, I caught sight of my stepsisters, and I knew they'd rat on me. So I raced out. I lost a shoe, and when I got home, I threw myself on my bed and cried myself to sleep.
What happened the next morning?
Well, the next morning, I tried to open the door, and it was locked. It's not normally locked when I wake up, so I banged and banged until my stepmother finally came and told me I was being punished and had to stay in my room. I pushed and pushed until the door finally opened.
What happened next?
Well, I heard glass shatter and a man's voice saying, there goes my last chance at finding true love. I grabbed the other shoe and raced down the stairs. And there I saw the prince with broken pieces of glass all around him. He knew it was me right away. The shoe fit, and now we are living happily ever after with our beloved cat Oscar.
No more questions, my lord.
Your witness, counsel.
Thank you, my lord. Cinderella, you said that while you lived with your stepmother and stepsisters, there were some chores that everybody had to do. Is that correct?
Yes.
Except for the work the full-time butler employed by your stepmother did, right?
Correct.
So in fact, you didn't have to do all the work around the house, did you?
Well, no, but I did a lot of it.
You did the chores your stepmother assigned you, but other housework was done by the butler, correct?
I guess so, yes.
Now, you testified that on the day of the homecoming ball, your stepmother gave you twice as much work to do as usual. Is that correct?
Yes, so I wouldn't be able to go to the ball.
But in fact, she never said you couldn't go to the ball, did she?
Well, no, but there was just so much work to do that it was almost impossible to get it done in time.
But you actually did get it all done, didn't you?
Yes, but I had to work very hard.
Cinderella, I'm going to suggest to you that if you had twice as much work to do that day than you normally did, and you got all the work done in one day, then the amount of work you normally got should only take half a day. Wouldn't you agree?
Objection. My friend is asking the witness to speculate.
My lord, I'm merely asking her to do some simple math. If it takes one day to do twice what she normally does, then what she normally does should only take half a day.
I will allow the question.
Oh, well, that day I did get help.
And who did you get help from?
I don't want to say.
Cinderella, I'd like to remind you that you're under oath and that you must answer each of the questions posed to you honestly and to the best of your ability.
Well, the butler.
So it is now your position that you did not in fact finish work by yourself on the day in question, but you still went to the ball that night even though you thought your stepmother didn't want you to, right?
Yes.
And you knew that she would be at the ball and that she would probably see you, right?
Yes.
So it is fair to say that you didn't care if your stepmother saw you or not because you weren't actually afraid of her?
No. I mean, I was always scared of her. She was always threatening to do bad things to my animal friends if I didn't obey her.
No more questions, my lord.
Would the Crown like to re-examine the witness?
No, my lord.
Cinderella, you may step down.
The Crown calls as its next witness Prince Charming.
Would you like to affirm or swear in an oath?
I'll affirm.
Do you solemnly affirm that the evidence you shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Your name is Prince Charming?
Prince Bieger. Charming's my middle name.
Are you employed?
Yes, I'm a full-time prince. It's not as easy as it sounds.
Where do you currently live?
In the Burnaby Palace.
Are you married?
Yes, to my baby, 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 ooh.
And who is that?
My darling Cinderella.
And how did you two meet?
At the homecoming ball, September 18, 2008.
Can you tell me about the ball?
Yes, I told my father, I just need somebody to love. Somebody, ooh, ooh, somebody. So he arranged it so I could find my princess. He sent out invitations to every household asking every daughter to be in attendance. My prep staff dressed me, did my hair, my makeup. Really, I just showed up.
And when you were at the ball, what happened?
I danced with a lot of girls, but none of them were really the right girl. My one true love, and I were going to give up until I met Cinderella. The moment I saw her, nobody's ever made me break into song the way she did. We danced the night away under the stars. It was magical. But suddenly, she looked surprised, and she ran off, and she left a shoe behind, so I grabbed it.
What did that shoe look like?
It was a Christian Louboutin slipper. Everybody knows that Christian Louboutin is the shoe of the season.
Is this the shoe?
Well, it's probably its partner because the actual shoe got broken in the day of questioning.
My lord, I'd like this exhibit tendered as exhibit number 3.
Any objections? Clerk, please mark this as exhibit number 3.
You stated that the other shoe broke. How did it break?
When the ugly troll sister of Cinderella's shoved her big fat foot in it.
Okay, let's backtrack. We'll go to the forcing of feet into shoes later. Can you tell me about what happened after the ball?
I was determined to find my girl, so I started at one end of the town and went knocking on every single door.
And did you find the owner of the shoe?
Eventually, yes, but not without difficulty.
What do you mean? What happened?
Well, I got to this one house, 6060 Marlborough Avenue. Cinderella's stepmother answered the door. She told me to come and sit down and wait for her 2 daughters. So I did. And suddenly I hear 2 screaming girls running down the stairs.
How did you notice from listening that there were 2 girls screaming and running down the stairs?
Excuse me, do you know who I am? I'm surrounded by screaming girls all the time.
Alright, what happened next?
Well, right away I could tell that neither of them were my baby, 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 ooh. But out of fairness, I had to at least let them try.
And then what happened?
Well, they tried on the shoe and there's sort of a thumping coming from upstairs. I didn't pay much attention to it. Meanwhile, downstairs, Drizella shoved her big fat foot in the shoe and broke it. And then suddenly a 3rd girl came running down the stairs holding the partner of the glass slipper. The stepmother and stepsister looked so angry, but right away I could tell that she was my baby, 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 ooh.
And who is that?
Cinderella. She put on the shoe and right away we fell in love.
No more questions. Your witness, counsel.
Now, Prince.
Your Highness?
Pardon?
The correct way to address me is Your Highness.
I apologize again, Your Highness. Prince Bieger, you testified that the reason you came to the Evelyn residence is because you're trying to find the right girl whose foot fit into the slipper.
Yes, she was the hottest girl I've ever met. I was in love.
That sounds exciting. I hear love can distract people from the ordinary business of life. I would have known, of course, being a lawyer, had your daily routine been disrupted at all?
Yes, I hadn't really eaten or slept much since the ball.
All right. Perfectly understandable, Your Highness. Do you recall by any chance how many houses you visited during the search before visiting Cinderella's?
I don't know, it was my 50th, my 55th?
A lot of walking, I'd imagine.
Well, I had my limo, so it was mainly a lot of sitting.
Naturally, Your Highness. In any case, there is testimony that on the day of your visit, while you were in the stepmother's home, you heard a thumping coming from upstairs?
Yes, it sort of sounded like somebody was banging on a door.
Do you remember what material the stairs of the spiral staircase were made of?
I'm pretty sure they were wooden.
Wood, precisely the substance of which doors are made.
Well, most of my doors are marble.
But the banging you heard would have been on a wooden door.
Well, yes.
Thank you, Your Highness. Have you spent much time listening to the sound of people thumping on doors during your life?
Well, my father has some prisoners, but I have nothing to do with them.
That's certainly understandable. Please remind me, on the day of your visit, you hadn't eaten or slept and you had been on your feet for hours.
Yes, I had been neglecting myself a bit, but I don't see how that has to do with anything.
But despite your tiredness, despite your exhaustion, despite your distraction, as you search for the woman of your dreams, you're certain that the sound you heard was a person banging on a door?
Yes!
And not say the sound of heels as a person is running down them. Perhaps an excited teenage girl eager to con her prince into marriage.
How dare you talk to me like that? Do you know who my mama is? She's the queen. That means you. And everybody else here works for me. How dare you say that about my wife? And how dare you say that about me? You, Sheriff, arrest him.
No more questions.
You may step down.
Thank you.
Crown, please call your next witness.
Thank you, my lord. The Crown calls Fairlene Gottmutter to the stand.
Would you like to affirm or swear in an oath?
I'll affirm an oath.
Do you solemnly affirm that the evidence you shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your full name for the record.
Fairlene Gottmutter.
Thank you, Mrs. Gottmutter. Do you go by any other name?
Well, Cinderella calls me her fairy godmother. She had trouble pronouncing my name when she was young.
What is the nature of your relationship with her?
Well, I have been her next-door neighbor since before she was born. I was an old friend of her mother's. Her dying wish was that I looked after her. I've tried to do that ever since, although lately it hasn't been easy.
Can you describe what happened after her mother's death?
Well, Cinderella's father was a wonderful man, too, with a fine, luscious mustache and a lovely head of hair. He had such a positive aura, bright purple, in fact, but he was lonely after his wife's death, and his taste in women to desert him.
Objection. That statement is a scandalous and prejudicial characterization of my client.
My lord, the witness is simply providing the background of this case and describing the events leading commission to the offenses.
Indeed, counsel, but she can do that without being so nasty and mean about it. Please confine your testimony to events yourself witnessed, and please do not provide your opinions, and please refrain from insulting the accused.
I apologize. Well, as I was saying, he was lonely, and that's when she came into the picture.
Can you please point out to whom you're referring to?
Her, sitting next to the sheriff.
Let the record reflect that the witness has indicated the accused, Madame Evelyn.
Identification noted.
What happened after Madame Evelyn entered Cinderella's life?
Well, for as long as Cinderella's father was alive, there weren't too many problems. Her stepmother seemed to take a genuine interest in Cinderella's well-being.
Was there any change after her father's death?
Yes, very quickly. Her hair became gray and she began to look like a stern old lady. Her behavior seemed to take a similar turn. For example, I had to help Cinderella move into the upstairs storage room when she was thrown out of her childhood bedroom.
You said you were still permitted into a house at this time?
Yes, within 6 months of Cinderella's father's death, that woman told me that I was a bad influence and that she didn't want me coming around anymore.
Can you describe the condition of the room when you help her in?
Well, it's a damp room about 10 feet square with a single window so high you can barely see out of it. I can just imagine it must be dreadfully freezing in the winter and stifling in the summer.
Did Cinderella ever leave the property?
Well, as far as I know, she rarely left the property. Sometimes I would see her over the garden fence, and it gave us a chance to exchange a few words.
Did Madame Evelyn use any threats to extra labor?
Yes, I once heard the stepmother tell Cinderella that if she didn't do what she said, she'd be out on her rear. And those daughters of hers were completely out of control. They delighted in bullying that girl. Their mother did nothing to stop it.
Was there anything else?
Yes, I once heard the stepmother tell Cinderella that if she didn't hand wash her sister's TNAs, that she'd let that big fat cat of hers loose in Cinderella's room and take care of Cinderella's little friends.
Objection.
I question the relevance of this line of questioning, my lord.
My lord, exploitations can be proven when the accused has forced a complainant to work by threatening the safety of someone known to them.
My friend states the law correctly. Someone, not some mouse. A mouse is not a person.
As far as the complainant is concerned, my lord, these mice can carry on intelligent conversation. This is more than can be said for some lawyers I know. Certainly, it is enough to make Madame Evelyn's threats effective. For better or worse, these mice were among Cinderella's only friends.
I do not appreciate your tone of voice, counsel, but you do raise some strong arguments. I will reserve judgment on this point.
Thank you, my lord. Mrs. Gottmutter, there's one final point I want to ask you about. Can you describe what happened on the night of the homecoming ball?
Oh, yes. I was out polishing my pumpkins when I heard a ruckus coming from that house. I poked my head over my prized pumpkin, which is as tall as a car, and I could see those two ugly stepsisters tearing a dress Cinderella was wearing to shreds. Then the three women piled into a stretched limo and drove off. I made sure they were gone, then I ran over to Cinderella to ask her if she was all right. She said she was miserable not to be going to the homecoming dance. So like any good godmother with magical powers, I conjured up a dress, a limo, and a chauffeur from whatever was at hand.
Okay. Did you create anything else?
Oh, yes. I nearly forgot. I made her a beautiful pair of glass Christian Louboutin slippers, so finely crafted that they would only fit her dainty little feet and no one else's.
Thank you, Mrs. Gottmutter. Nothing further for this witness, my lord.
Your witness, defense counsel?
Thank you, my lord. You testify that you saw Madame Evelyn's daughter bully Cinderella.
Yes, when they could tear the size away from their iPhones, all they did was tease her and call her names.
And you testified that on at least one occasion you heard Madame Evelyn threaten Cinderella's mice friends? Now, Miss Godmother, wasn't it also your evidence that you were not permitted at the Evelyn's house since Cinderella's father died?
Yes, that woman told me that I was a bad influence. Utter hogwash.
And isn't it true that there is a guarded fence separating your property from the Evelyn house? And next to the fence is a pumpkin patch with, let me see, how did you put it? Ah, that's right, a pumpkin as tall as a car.
Oh yes, my prized pumpkin. I call him Humphrey.
Miss Godmother, how tall are you?
Me, dear, I'm 5'2".
So, you are not as tall as a car.
No, not quite.
And yet, you were able to see all those things happening at Cinderella's house from your property, even though there's a pumpkin as tall as a car in the way.
Well, no, dear, don't be silly. Since I couldn't be there because she banished me, I had the birds tell me what was happening.
I'm sorry, Miss Godmother. The birds told you what Madame Evelyn was up to?
Oh, yes. I follow their tweets on Twitter.
Oh, I see. Miss Godmother, you testified that on the night of the homecoming ball, you conjured up a dress and a limo for Cinderella. How does one conjure up a dress and a limo?
With magic, of course.
I'm sorry, did you say magic?
What? Haven't you ever seen a woman with magical powers before?
I asked the questions here, Miss Godmother. Now, let me get this straight. You're suggesting that you used magic to create a dress and a car?
Well, I don't have the figure I once did, so I couldn't loan Cinderella a dress for the homecoming dance, and I'm sure she wouldn't want to fly on my Nimbus 3000 to get there.
Miss Godmother, you don't really expect the court to believe in magic, do you?
Well, of course I do.
And what proof of magic do you have?
Well, unfortunately, sir, the sheriff confiscated my magic wands.
The sheriff confiscated your wand, huh? No further questions, my lord.
The Crown rests its case, my lord.
You may step down.
Silly muggles.
Does the defense wish to call evidence?
The defense does, my lord.
Very well. Would the defense like to make an opening statement?
Yes, thank you, my lord.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, as did my friend, I intend to keep this opening brief. We are here today to explain to you that Madame Evelyn is not guilty. We'll call witnesses who will tell you that Cinderella needed to be protected for her own good, is completely exaggerating her chores, and that Madame Evelyn was just an concerned parent. Most importantly, members of the jury, Madame Evelyn has the right not to testify at her own trial. This is a very important right in our legal system. She has given up that right so she might testify in front of you and tell you her side of the story. I ask that you do not take this lightly, ladies and gentlemen, and I ask you to listen carefully to her version of events. At the end of this trial, we'll ask you to return a verdict that the accused, Madame Evelyn, is not guilty of unlawful exploitation or forcible confinement. Thank you.
The defense calls Anastasia and Drizella Evilyn to the stand.
Objection, my lord. This is absurd. Two people cannot take the stand at once.
My lord, for the sake of brevity, we decided to call the stepsisters together. They are inseparable, and through the course of depositions, we concluded that their testimony overlapped substantially. Understanding that this is most unusual, with my friend's permission, I will continue.
Fine, go on.
Ladies, you may take the stand.
Would you like to affirm or swear on an oath?
Swear.
Take the Bible in your right hand. Do you swear that evidence you shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
We do.
Please state your full names for the record.
Drizella Evilyn, 21 years old.
Anastasia Evilyn, 21 years old.
And what is your relationship with the complainant?
She's our stepsister, duh.
Not that we had a choice in the matter.
Yeah, like, really.
And how would you describe the relationship between your mom and the complainant, Cinderella?
Well, they fight a lot. I think that the problem is that Cinderella does not respect Mom's authority, and that gets her into trouble sometimes.
Yeah, she used to be Daddy's little princess. And since her father passed away, she never really got used to be a member of her family.
I agree completely. She got this sense of entitlement. She expects special treatment. I think she is unstable.
Yes, unstable. It's precisely it. She keeps talking to mice and birds. She's insane.
Objection. The witnesses are not qualified to give an opinion on Cinderella's mental state.
Sustained. Members of the jury, you'll ignore that last part.
All right, getting back to the relationship between your mom and Cinderella, would you say that your mom was particularly harsh on Cinderella?
No. Well, if she was, Cinderella deserved it.
Yeah, Cinderella can be quite nasty when it suits her.
Can you provide a specific example?
Well, it was pretty much an everyday occurrence. Cinderella was always bringing vermin into the house, and this upset Mom because she's concerned about her health and sanitation.
And rabies.
Right, rabies. Who knows where those filthy creatures have been?
And she was always talking back, slamming doors, and sometimes she abused Mom's lovely cat Lucifer.
I'd say that the biggest thing is that Cinderella is constantly trying to get out of her chores. We all have responsibilities, but Cinderella thought she deserves special treatment.
Yep, that sense of entitlement.
And how did your mom respond when Cinderella talked back, disobeyed, or neglected her responsibilities?
In the usual way, I suppose. I mean, she might send Cinderella to her room without dinner, or ground her for a few days, or give more chores as punishment.
But Mom was always justified.
Completely justified.
Okay, let's move on to the days leading up to homecoming. Were you surprised that Cinderella wanted to go?
Yeah, totally. She never wanted to go anywhere. She just loved moping around her room.
Yeah, such a loser. She has like 4 Facebook friends, and they're all animals. I can't imagine who she expected to talk to when she got to the ball.
She probably just wanted to go so that she could drag us down.
That's so like her.
Did your mom forbid Cinderella from going to homecoming?
Of course not. Mom wanted all of us to go together. But Cinderella had not finished her chores.
As per usual.
So naturally, that was a precondition on her going. She had to finish her chores first.
And find something suitable to wear.
Quite a feat, given that Cinderella had the fashions of a beige wall.
That's generous, but seriously,
she's hopeless.
Now how about the day after homecoming, when the prince came to the house? Do you remember Cinderella was locked in her room at the time?
I remember she was being punished for something.
Justifiably so.
Anyways, she must not have been locked up because just as I was trying on the shoe, Cinderella came bursting down the stairs and had to spoil my one chance of becoming a princess.
Yeah, right. Like the prince would ever marry you. He was just about to propose to moi.
Whatever.
No more questions, my lord.
Crown, would you like to cross-examine the witness?
I would, my lord.
Anastasia, this is a courtroom of law. Turn off your phone. You are to respect the seriousness at hand. Sheriff, would you please confiscate Miss Evelyn's phone?
Anastasia.
Fine.
See?
Counsel, please continue.
All right, ugly stepsisters. So what?
Objection?
She called us ugly.
I don't think it's fair that the Crown calls our witnesses ugly.
Yeah, like we have names, you know.
And we're like not ugly. We just got Botox injections.
Please refrain from speaking until you are asked a question. Sustained. Counsel, please refer to the witnesses in a more polite manner.
Yeah.
So what chores do you have?
Well, I have to put my own dirty clothes in the laundry basket at the end of each day, and I have to lock the door behind me when I leave the house.
Same, but we have to spend a lot of time studying and practicing our music and stuff. I could become the next Lady Gaga.
So Cinderella has a lot more chores than you, didn't she?
I guess she had a few more than us, but like not much.
You were not when Cinderella didn't finish all of her chores, weren't you?
Obviously.
And your mom encouraged you to be mean to Cinderella, didn't she?
Well, I guess she liked it when we walked across floors Cinderella had just cleaned with our muddy shoes. And I guess she liked it when we spilt milk and ketchup and stuff on the tablecloth. But it's just normal sibling rivalry things, you know?
Okay, moving on. Well, you have an iPhone, but she doesn't, right?
Yeah, but she doesn't need one. She has no friends to call.
And mice can't answer phones.
And you have an iPad, but she doesn't, right?
Yeah, but she doesn't need one. She doesn't have any emails to check.
Or online shopping studio.
And you have, I believe, attended no less than 83 Usher concerts, while Cinderella has attended none, correct?
Well, yes.
And how many pieces of clothing from TNA do you have?
Like 450?
Too many to count.
And how many pieces does Cinderella have? Remember, you're under oath up here.
Okay, none. But she likes wearing second-hand men's sweatpants all the time.
All the time.
So you think it's fair between all siblings, but you have been to 83 Usher concerts, have an iPhone, iPad, and 450 pieces of TNA clothes. But when Cinderella lived with you, she only had a scrub brush and a bucket for her toys. Anne had never seen an Usher concert before. Anne had to wear second-hand sweatpants every single time.
I don't know.
Well, if you knew her, you'd think it was fair.
And the one time that she did make something nice for herself to wear to the homecoming, you proceeded to rip it off of her.
First of all, that dress was not nice. It was so last year.
We are just taking back what was rightfully ours. She snuck into our rooms without permission and stole material to make that dress.
And your mom took your side.
Of course, she always does. I mean, when we're right.
which is always.
No more further questions, my lord.
Would the defense like to re-examine the witnesses?
No, my lord.
You may step down. Defense counsel, your next witness.
The defense calls Mr. Alfred Smithers to stand.
Would you like to affirm or swear on an oath? Swear. Take the Bible in your right hand. Do you swear that evidence you shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your full name for the record.
Mr. Alfred Smithers.
Mr. Smithers, what do you do for a living?
I'm a butler.
And where do you live?
At 6060 Marlborough Avenue with the Evelyn family. I have a room within the house.
And how long have you lived there?
Madame hired me 10 years ago.
Please tell me, what was the atmosphere like in the house?
Oh, I do say it was very welcoming. As a matter of fact, I pursued my employment with the Evelyns because I saw the family's values were very important.
So you spent a lot of time with the family?
Oh, yes, I was welcomed as one of the family.
Did you live comfortably?
Oh, yes, I have a room adjacent to Madame's. It's currently one of the nicest in the house.
Now, Mr. Smithers, what does your job entail?
Madame hired me to work outline the job description.
My lord, I would like to enter this document as the next exhibit.
Go ahead. Clerk, please mark this as exhibit number 4.
Mr. Smithers, could you please tell the court what duties were included in your job description?
As outlined there, I was responsible for getting fresh flowers for the house, attending to Madame's guests, stocking the house with food and wine, attending to the mail-in bills, and performing general accounting.
Were you responsible for any physical labor around the house?
Why, yes, in my first year of employment. But as the girls got older, they took on more responsibilities, and my role shifted.
How do you mean it shifted?
I took on a role that describes there. I took on a role a butler intended to have. I took on a more supervisory role.
All right, how do you say the chores were distributed among the girls?
Well, each child had their equal share of household responsibilities. Extra chores were doled out, but only if they misbehaved.
Did any of the girls misbehave more than the others?
Why, yes, Cinderella certainly did. If she ever had more chores to do than the others, it was her own fault.
Were you familiar with any extracurricular activities the girls participated in?
Well, both Anastasia and Drizella spent a great deal of time on their schoolwork and learning the arts. Unlike Cinderella, who I might add had a beautiful voice. But they weren't naturally gifted musicians. Everyone must work on their weaknesses. Cinderella needed to learn to do the right thing. She was careless and sloppy. You should just see what a mess she made at Madame's closet. All the Dior's and Valentino's mixed together. Terrible.
Thank you, Mr. Smithers. Did you have any other responsibilities?
Oh, yes, I really did anything Madame required me to do. I was a vital asset to the family.
No further questions.
Crown Counsel, do you have any questions for cross-examination?
Yes. Thank you, my lord. Mrs. Smithers, you said that you have the room next to stepmother's, is that correct?
Yes.
And that is a nicer room than Cinderella or even her stepsisters had, right?
Yes.
And you said you felt welcome and a part of the family, correct?
Yes.
You would agree then that this is a very good job you have, wouldn't you?
Yes.
More than a job, it's your home and your family, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
And you wouldn't do anything that would put you in danger of losing it, would you?
No, but I'm not lying if that's what you're suggesting.
Not at all, but you do care a great deal for the stepmother, don't you? Can I take that exchange to mean yes?
Yes.
And in fact, you will never do anything that will get her in trouble, would you?
No.
No further questions, my lord.
Re-examination, Defense Counsel?
No, my lord.
Thank you. You may step down.
The defense will now call its last witness, Madame Evilyn.
Would you like to affirm or swear on an oath?
Swear.
Take the Bible in your right hand. Do you swear that the evidence you shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God?
I do.
Please state your full name for the record.
Madame Evilyn, spelled E-V-I-L-Y-N.
Madame Evelyn, as a mother of 3 daughters, could you please explain your approach to parenting generally?
Well, I believe in running a fairly strict household, but that is because I love my children very much and want them to grow up to be responsible and self-sufficient young women. I take motherhood very seriously.
So, is it fair to say that you make your children do chores?
Certainly, I think that all children should do chores. I certainly can't look after the entire house on my own.
Can you describe your relationship with Cinderella?
Well, she's a lovely girl, but slightly troubled. She was much more difficult to raise than my other 2 daughters. She tends to get quite distracted when doing chores, and often dawdles. Her imagination was also a bit of a worry. She was so clever and inventive when I first met her, but over the years she started to live in a fantasy world. I became very concerned a couple years ago when she started to constantly talk to birds and mice. She also stopped going to high school partway through, which I did not approve of, so I made sure that we had all the necessary teaching materials here at home. She became very antisocial and withdrawn in her teens.
And what have you observed between Cinderella and her 2 sisters?
My other 2 daughters are very different from Cinderella. They are much more outgoing and have lots of friends. At times, when Cinderella still lived with us, there were disagreements. But I expect that to happen between girls of their ages.
And what would you do when there was a disagreement?
Well, I couldn't monitor their every move, but I still believe in discipline. When the girls fought, they would be sent to their rooms.
When Cinderella was sent to her room, did you ever lock her in there?
Certainly not. I would never lock my children in their rooms. I would just tell her the reason that she had been sent to her room and that she could come out once she was ready to behave.
All right, turning to the night of September 14th, 2008. I understand that you received a letter about the homecoming ball with the prince. Did you read that letter?
Yes, I did. It said that all bachelorettes were invited to a homecoming ball. I told them all that they could go to the ball once they finished their list of chores and if they found something appropriate to wear. Because my other 2 daughters had finished their chores, I took them shopping. I told Cinderella she could shop when she finished her chores. She was taking a long time that day because she kept talking to those darn vermin she brings in the house.
So, after we returned from shopping, what happened?
Well, Cinderella had done very few of her chores, but I told her that if she found a dress, she could go. Later, when the limo arrived to take them to the ball, I could tell that dress she was wearing had been made from parts of her stepsisters' dresses. They were very upset and they tried to take those parts back. And in the process, a bit of Cinderella's dress was damaged. I'm sure it was an accident.
Objection.
The witness is speculating.
Evelyn, I ask you not to speculate about what might or might not have been accidental. So, was Cinderella then allowed to go to the ball?
Well, no, she wasn't appropriately dressed. If she were, I would have given her permission to go.
Then what happened?
Well, I was chaperoning homecoming for my other 2 daughters, and who should arrive but Cinderella, in a dress that was clearly not her own. I was concerned she may have stolen it, but I left it alone, thinking we could talk the next day in private.
What happened when you went home?
I went to bed. It was quite late. The next morning, I went up to talk with Cinderella about the dress, and she denied having stolen it. She said something about mice and magic and fairies. I was concerned about how her behavior had been deteriorating and that she might actually be losing her mind. So I shut her door and asked her to stay there until I came back. I was about to call the family doctor when I heard a knock at the door. It was the prince. He asked about the ball the night before. He was looking for a girl he had danced with.
I thought he might be talking about one of my other two daughters, so I went to get them. They were very excited to see the prince.
Did you also get Cinderella?
No, I didn't feel she was acting well enough to receive visitors then.
What happened then?
The prince had a glass Christian Louboutin shoe with him for my daughters to try on. But he tripped and dropped it. It shattered. It was ever so unfortunate. No one could try it on. But then I heard a pounding upstairs. Cinderella came rushing down. I was concerned she may have broken down her door. But she had another glass Christian Louboutin shoe with her. When the prince saw that, he took her away.
Have you seen Cinderella ever since?
Only since the beginning of these court proceedings.
And how did you feel about that?
I miss her so much. Even though she's not my flesh and blood, she is my daughter. I did everything I could to raise her properly, and am very concerned about her well-being.
Thank you. Those are my questions, my lord.
Crown, would you like to cross-examine the witness?
Thank you, my lord. Madame Evelyn, you testified that when a girl was foul or misbehaved, you would send them to their rooms, correct?
Yes.
But you let your daughters out of their room in order to attend extracurricular activities.
Yes, of course.
Which of these activities was Cinderella involved in?
Cinderella never really took an interest in any activities. As I said, she was very withdrawn in her teenage years. She could have been involved. No one was stopping her.
So, if Cinderella was not allowed of her room to do activities, and she was not allowed of her room to attend the ball, and she didn't attend school, when was she allowed out?
Well, to do chores, of course, and at most meal times, when her chores were done.
So Cinderella was only allowed of her room to do her chores?
Well, she could leave her room if she wanted to. I mean, I never locked it or anything. She was free to leave. She just loved those darn vermin. I mean mice. So much that she didn't want to.
Madame Evelyn, that's a lovely necklace you're wearing. Would you mind showing it to the court?
Oh, yes. Thank you. It's gold. A gift from my daughters. From Tiffany's, of course.
Is that a key hanging on the chain?
It's just a pendant.
That's an awfully big pendant, Madame Evelyn. In fact, that looks like a real key.
I assure you it's not. It's very 2011 to wear a key as a necklace. If you watched Gossip Girl, you would know that.
I put it to you, Madame Evelyn, that this key is a key to Cinderella's bedroom, and you did not only lock her in there, but guarded this key so fiercely that you wore it around your neck 24/7.
I told you I didn't lock it. I left her in there for her own good.
But on the day the prince came to your house, you told the court that you thought Cinderella might have broken her door down, did you not?
Yes.
Now, why would you think Cinderella had to break down her door unless you had locked her in there in the first place?
I don't know. I didn't mean what I said.
No further questions.
My lord, those are all the witnesses for the defense.
All right. Does the defense like to proceed with their closing argument?
We are, my lord.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this is the final opportunity that we, the defense, will have to speak with you. I ask you to accept Madame Evelyn's testimony as truthful, and if you do, as I'm sure her lordship would advance you, you must find her not guilty of unlawful exportation or forcible confinement. That said, the way our legal systems work in Canada is that there's no ounce on Madame Evelyn to prove her innocence. The Crown must prove her guilty to beyond a reasonable doubt. As you heard from the witness, every child in the house had to do chores. There was nothing wrong with Cinderella having to do some work around the house. In fact, as you heard, at least once, the butler, Mr. Smithers, had even helped her with her chores, and he had responsibilities for many of the household tasks. All teenagers have to do chores, and it cannot be called as exploitation to demand they do them properly.
Madame Evilyn occasionally punished Cinderella when she didn't do her work, but Cinderella has testified that she went to the ball even though it was expressly prohibited by her stepmother. So she clearly wasn't afraid to disobey her stepmother and leave the house when she was grounded. Is that how someone who fears for her safety behaves? I think not. As for the charge of unlawful confinement, it is completely normal for parents to send their children to their room. The Crown hasn't shown beyond a reasonable doubt that Madame Evilyn locked Cinderella in her room, or it was Madame Evilyn who did the locking. She was free to leave, and she obviously wasn't that confined because she was able to go downstairs to see the prince. Young Cinderella is clearly mentally unstable and has fabricated this story. I mean, she talks to animals. What more can I say? Madame Evilyn is just a single mom trying to do the best she can for her daughters. Some discipline is necessary with teenagers these days. It's not against the law to buy all your children iPhones and tickets to 83 Usher concerts. Ladies and gentlemen, after you consider all the evidence, we ask you that you return a verdict of not guilty for unlawful exploitation and not guilty for forcible confinement. Thank you.
Discipline. This case goes far beyond disciplining teenage girls. Does it really count as disciplining when you force your teenage stepdaughter to run the entire household all day, every day, and not lock her in her room? When you threaten to kill her only friends and roll demise? Is it discipline to raise your daughter to fear for her safety day in and day out? The defense is correct on the point that we, the Crown, bear the onus to prove Madame Evilyn's guilt to you. I submit to you, though you have met this heavy burden. The evidence before you clearly establishes that Cinderella was unlawfully exploited against her will. Cinderella told you about the threats her stepmother made against the mice, Cinderella's only friends in the whole world. You heard how she regularly went without dinner when she wasn't finished all of her chores. All of this could lead a reasonable person to believe that their safety was threatened.
Cinderella also told you that the day after the homecoming ball, when the prince visited the house, she was locked in her room and could not leave on her own. You even saw how the accused was a rusty key, the key to the very room Cinderella was locked in, around her neck. Cinderella is just an innocent victim here. She was young and vulnerable, and her stepmother took advantage of her father's death to exploit and confine her. The accused is an evil, conniving, domineering, manipulative, stupid, sour-faced hag. We ask you again, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, that after you consider all of the evidence that is before you, to return a verdict of guilty on both charges. Thank you.
I will now turn to my jury charge. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, that concludes the evidence in this case. You have heard the evidence from the Crown that the accused unlawfully and exploited the complainant, Cinderella. When you retire to deliberate, the first question you must consider is whether the Crown has proven, beyond a reasonable doubt, the charges of unlawful exploitation beyond a reasonable doubt. That the accused caused Cinderella to provide labor against her will, and in doing so, the accused led Cinderella to believe the safety of her or a person known to her would be threatened if she failed to provide these labor or such services. If you find that the Crown has proven the second question you must consider is whether the Crown has proven beyond reasonable doubt the elements of the charge of unlawful confinement under Section 279, Part 2 of the Criminal Code. You may find the accused guilty of both of these charges, neither of these charges, or one of these charges. Normally, I would go over the evidence, as I understand. But you all look like a smart bunch, so we'll skip all that. You may now proceed to the jury room for deliberation.
Order in court. This court is adjourned to the await of the jury. All rise.
You may be seated.
Members of the jury, have you reached a verdict?
Yes, we have.
Madam Foreperson, what is your verdict contrary to Section 279, Part 2 of the Criminal Code?
Not guilty.
What is your verdict contrary to Section 279.04 of the Criminal Code?
Not guilty.
Your verdict is not guilty on both counts, my lord.
Madame Evelyn, the jury of your peers has found you not guilty. You are free to go. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we thank you for your services as jurors in this matter. Both society and law benefit from your contribution. In return, I hope you have found this to be an interesting and rewarding experience.
This court stands adjourned. Order in court.